our solar system is in an arm coming out of the huge black hole in the center of our galaxy, and that arm is rotating away from the center, and our solar system is stuck in that galactic arm, is rotating in that galactic arm, and it passes back and forth across the galactic equator, where the space-time manifold flattens and where you would get the maximum amount of radiation, galactic cosmic rays, which are particles that are accelerated throughout the galaxy and that are hitting matter as they go along and creating gamma rays and all sorts of dynamics. Now, when we passed that equator, I realized that that may be where the ancient Mayans and the solar calendar and all this was describing that there was going to be an energy increase, an energy event in our solar system resulting from our relationship to the galactic center, which they talked about a lot. And that when we cross the galactic equator, we would get bombarded with more galactic cosmic rays that would activate the plasma dynamic of our sun, and that the sun may go through a larger cycle in which in that moment it gets hotter and more active than it was in between when we're not going through the galactic equator. The Mayans said that that was going to occur around 2012, and I started to study the solar cycle, and I realized that the sun flipped its poles every 11 years, and that every 11 years it would get hotter, more active, and then cooler and less active in between the 11-year cycle. I realized as well that the last cycle would occur approximately in 2000-2001. Adding 11 years to that matched the solar calendar of the Mayan, in which you know, the sun would flip this pole and get active again in 2012. However, I deduced from the research, from my understanding of the mechanics of the physics and astrophysics of our sun, from my equations describing the plasma dynamics on the surface of the sun, my balance equation that describe a relationship between the gravitational side of our sun dynamics and the electromagnetic side of our sun, that all these components put together would make this specific 11-year cycle between 2001 and 2012 most likely a much more active and a much more dynamic cycle than anything we've seen before since we've been recording since approximately Galileo.
Recently, scientific papers have emerged using simulations based on previous data, which predict that our current solar cycle is going to be 30 to 50% more active than the previous cycle. As Harriman notes, when the larger galactic cycle is considered, then our current solar cycle may develop into one of the most active cycles ever recorded. Applying the Harriman-Rosher scaling law and his balance equation that relates the gravitational and electromagnetic components, Harriman further theorizes that our own sun's power levels may be driven by a small singularity at its center that he calls a white hole black hole, where hole is W-H-O-L-E. In this scenario, the information transfer dynamic across the white hole-black hole boundary event horizon drives the fusion structure of our sun. Harriman points out that these dynamics would produce dark, cooler regions that we call sunspots, which are actual vortices of material and electromagnetic radiation being sucked in towards the centering singularity, resulting in an elongation of the electromagnetic waveforms, generating high X-ray emissions in those regions, just as one would expect from material falling into the event horizon of a black hole. In this recent footage of the sun's outer limb return from the Japanese space telescope called Hinode, astronomers were startled at what they saw. Where they expected to see large prominence of plasma ejections blowing into space, they were startled to find these ejections crashing down onto the sun's surface as if they were collapsing from exhaustion and being sucked into the sun and reabsorbed. Leading astrophysicist Dr. Leon Golub of the Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics described these dynamics as impossible in the context of our current understanding of the sun's physics. However, Harriman's model predicts, as clearly seen in this footage, that a portion of the plasma ejections from the sun would be absorbed by the large vorticular sunspot activity produced by the centering singularity of our sun. Furthermore, as the sunspot activity increases, so do the radiation levels. Therefore, an increase in sunspot activity would result in an increase in radiation in the whole of our solar system. Since the sun is 99.8% of the mass of our solar system, even a few degrees change in our sun's radial heat would have large consequences in the overall temperature of the Earth and its weather patterns. Harriman notes as well that the increase in solar flare strength that has been observed in the past few years, such as the record-breaking solar flare of November 2003, projects highly ionized plasma particles into our solar system, which eventually get caught in the magnetic lines of our Earth and are transported to the poles, geomagnetic vortices, thereby heating up the atmosphere and the ice caps, resulting in the accelerated meltdown of the ice sheets. The increase in atmospheric temperature is further compounded by the greenhouse effect, where pollutants trap the heat as in an immense blanket inside the atmosphere. New data from the NASA experts resulting from satellite photography shows that the Greenland ice sheets are melting 2 times faster than previously expected. And new estimates predict that there may be a significant increase in sea levels over the next 10 to 100 years. And since many of the largest cities in the world are at sea level, such a change would have a dramatic effect on our society as a whole. The fresh water being dumped into our oceans will have large impacts on our climates, and already the Gulf Stream current has been reported to have slowed down by 30%, the effects of which are only now beginning to be seen with increased hurricane activity, storms, and temperature extremes.
These changes, interestingly, have been predicted by many ancient civilizations throughout the ages, talking about this moment in history as a moment in which we were going to encounter large changes on our planet, and that was going to be a precursor to a change in mentality, a change in society, a change in technology that would be forced out of this large, somewhat cataclysmic change on our planet. Some of that technology is emerging now, and I'm very excited about it. We may find ourselves living in a completely different society very shortly. I'm meaning within the next 15 years, we might start to see technologies that allow us to beat the gravitational field and levitate things, move off the surface of our planet, and really give the Earth back to the Earth, allowing the Earth to become the garden again, and us living in a completely different relationship.
Recent experiments by NASA have now shown that by rotating a superconductive ring, a significant reduction in weight is achieved. These are preliminary experiments that are rapidly moving towards our capacity to transcend the gravitational field and make gravitational drives commonplace.
I call it getting the Z-ax. We've been living in a two-dimensional world, and we're learning now. I think we're going to arrive to the point where we're going to be able to move up and gain a whole new perspective on our relationship to our planet and our solar system, and as a whole, our universe. So that's exciting.